Thank you. It must have been Uber Eats because I didn't pay him. Oh, you were saying ever since you were building your business, because we're talking about being these signs that are kind of like conflictual in their nature. And so
I'm just discovering new parts of myself. As a Sagittarius, I'm focused and like efficient, and to see that in my everyday life was great. I felt like I really had a rhythm, but when you bring in other people and collaborations and employees and contractors, it just is a whole other version of myself that I have to get to know and like figure out how to engage, because like you said, that Sagittarius Leo intensity plus creativity can be a whirlwind.
I know, but you're doing such a wonderful job. One of the things that I admire so much about you, as someone who actively follows your work, follows your messages, follows your communication, is how you prioritize being kind to yourself and honoring your energy, honoring your space, honoring the boundaries you choose to use to make the life that you love, that you want to lead. And I know that you have been working for a very long time on discovering yourself and growing into who you are. Can you just tell us how that journey has been in defining this aspect of who you are?
I've always been incredibly like insightful to myself. I've always been very curious about what I was feeling and why I was feeling it and how my feelings were in relation to the rest of my world. And I can remember even being like 12 and wondering, what are things that 12-year-olds like me need to be considering? Like how we're showing up in school or how we are building friendships. I can remember a school project where we got to like do a poster of our 25-year-old self, what we thought it would look like and feel like. And that was the most interesting, exciting project to me, because it was exactly where my mind always was, making considerations of who I was at the moment and who I wanted to be and what it took to get between those two things. And I'm not sure what instilled that type of curiosity in me, but it ended up serving me very well as an adult, because I'm fairly intentional about what I build around my world. And I think that these boundaries I've been able to set and kind of just this framework for how I want to move through the world has been solely built on me being interested and curious about what are the ways I can show up in the world? What are the ways I can try new things and do new things? And I really do feel like I've been able to build a life that feels very, very true to me.
I know that we've spoken about your mom in the past, and I know that I was an immediate fan of her when you described her. And I wanted to ask you, was there something within your experience with her, with your family, and maybe through your ancestors that also inform your intuition, your natural intuition, to guide you to live the way you want to live within the world?
You know, my mom has a disability. She has polio. She's had it since she was 5. She's walked on crutches my whole life. And being the youngest and having siblings who kind of were out of the house or heading out of the house by the time I was in my adolescence, I really was born into a bit of a caregiver role in the ways that I was engaging with my mother. So I had to take a lot more responsibility than a child would normally have if they had parents without disabilities. And so my mom actually really turned this situation into a bit of a game for me, a bit of a challenge, and I loved it. I loved the challenge of seeing what I was capable of. So even small things, if we were going somewhere and my mom, you know, there was traffic or we were rushing and my mom just couldn't get out of the car quickly enough to get something done, she would send me into the bank or send me into the store, and I would have to both follow her directions, figure out what was happening and how it was happening. And so having a childhood filled with opportunities to see what I was capable of really poured into my adulthood, where I was comfortable being in relationship with challenges that pushed me to see, okay, what can you do? How can you do it? How can you be most creative? How can you be most efficient in this thing that needs to be done? Even if it doesn't seem possible at the time, which so many of the things that my mother was asking me to do or needing me to do as a child felt terrifying, felt unfamiliar, and they were both of those things. Sometimes they were terrifying and unfamiliar. It wasn't just a feeling that I was having. And it, you know, I'm really grateful for the ways that my mom insisted that I try, or insisted that I see what I was capable of. Not only because it needed to be done, because if I didn't do it, she wasn't necessarily able to, but it instilled in me this trust that I can get things done, and that if I can't, I can figure out how to.
I mean, and this is like a huge, like, FU, if I can use that word, to society, because your mom, notwithstanding her particular disability, was able to instill a courage in you that is marvelous. And that's like basically says to society, look how I have set my child up. Because when I hear you talk about your mom, I hear a pride and I hear such a joy in, you know, you confronting these challenges, in you know, really just like doing the thing, you really achieving so much for yourself and for her. And I feel like we definitely need to hear more stories like your stories, so that we can challenge people's perceptions towards disability and what that means in our society.
For sure. And the flip side of that coin is that my mother was constantly needing help, and it really taught me that it was okay to need help, and that was okay to ask for help. And I think that has been a huge part of my personal self and how I've moved through my career, because I remember times when we were at the grocery store and we had a, you know, cart full of things, and my mom couldn't lift them all into the car, and I was too small to lift them all into the car, and there would be a random person walking by, and my mom would be like, excuse me, can you put these in the car for me? And my mom had full expectation that people would help. And so I grew up believing that people naturally wanted to help me, and naturally that I deserved to be helped. Like, my mom never shied away from making demands of people to support her in moving through the world, and not even in an entitled way, but in a humanity way. Like, you see me, I see you, here's support that I need, and you have the capabilities. And people usually responded to her very warmly. And so I've really been considering it just recently, how my mother's ability to ask for help and her belief that, I mean, for us to be getting into the car to go to the store, she knew that she was going to have to ask for help at some point. And so my whole life, we were moving through the world with a trust in my capability, and in trust that people will help in the ways that I didn't have the capability.
I feel like she really leaned into her dignity in such a graceful, empowering way. And I feel that everything that she was teaching you, I think it was so intelligent, and I think that it was so intelligent in the sense that she had a clarity.
Yeah, she was. I think my mom was really intentional, and I think that she, you know, she knew the limitations that she had with her disability, and she decided to expand them in the ways that she could with me. Whether it was even our financial situation, you know, there's only so much that we would be able to do, and I can remember my mom. I went to like a week of golf camp, which is so not anything I would have wanted, like, volunteer to do, but I was curious and interested. And I'd be like, Mom, why did you want me to go here? And she said, well, in some business worlds, golf is the way that people socialize and network. And I want you to at least to be able to say, yes, I have golfed before. Even if I can't send you to classes all the time, I'm going to send you to this weekend summer camp so you can have a little bit of familiarity, so that you can move through the world a little bit easier than I did. So I think my mother was very intentional.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. And there are a ton of other things that she signed you up for that were equally intentional. And like, she had a vision.
Yeah.
She had that clarity. And so you come from a space of empathy and compassion and a deep, deep concern for your fellow human. And, you know, when I think about the piece that you wrote in Harper's Bazaar in August of 2018, entitled "When Feminism Is..." Oh my God.
Wait, what is it?
When feminism is in the heel, right?
Wait, what is it?
Oh my God.
When,
Okay.
when white feminism.
When feminism is
When
white
white feminism is. When feminism
is white, yeah, in heels. Okay. So we'll just go back a little bit. Okay. So yes, so you come from a space where caregiving and empathy was really deep in your spirit. You knew it well. You grew up just having that kind of intention and perspective on the world. So, you know, it's no surprise to me that you would dedicate yourself to advocating for your fellow human, for your fellow women. And so a lot of people will remember and recognize your piece because it was a really catalyzing piece, and it was entitled "When Feminism is White Supremacy in Heels," and it was published in Harper's Bazaar in August of 2018. And it was a piece that really put a lot of people on notice and woke up a lot of thinking and explained a lot of the things that that occurs currently when it comes to feminism and white women. But you know, we've had a brief look at your childhood, but even after that, like, you've always been an entrepreneur and you've always been community building. In everything that you've done, you have thought of the community, you have thought of how you can enhance the community, and we just want to emphasize the work that you have done. Can you just please talk to some of that? Like, what did you do before 1.7 million followers on Instagram, learning because your feed is an educational feed, and starting the Loveland? What was that part of the journey like?
You know, I was a nanny mostly. That's how I moved through the world. That's how I made my living when I moved to New York City. And actually, when I left Ohio, when I was in DC and then New York City as well, nannying was the way that I was able to survive in the city. And really, those years were filled with me learning, with me trying to figure out, what are my politics? Who are my people? What do I need to understand? What do I want to understand? And a lot of that looked like the conversations I was having with the parents I was nannying for, going to different events around the city and getting a feel for what really matters, both here in New York, but also in the world, and how did I fit into that? Growing up in the Midwest in Ohio, I didn't meet a lot of different people. It was all very, very black and white. Everyone was speaking with the same accent. And so moving out of Ohio really just blew me away with how much of the world there was that I hadn't had any conversation with or any understanding of. And so that curiosity that my mom had instilled in me really just took off, because there was so much to discover and explore. And I was able to travel for the first time, and I was able to read things I hadn't had access to. And it ended up being kind of a on-ramp to the way that my career has panned out to this point, where I really just teach as I learn. I really just go through the world in the ways that feel natural to me. And as I learn and discover new things, I find ways to bring that to my community, on my platform and in my real world, the people who I'm engaging with and learning with and from. And so that particular article came out of me having a deep learning experience about feminism, about the ways that my Blackness intersected with my experience of being a woman and being a feminist. And as I was going through this deep learning, I thought to myself, I have to share this. I have to share this more. And that is where I kind of found a voice within feminism and within activism as a whole to kind of be positioned as someone who learns out loud, someone who is constantly being curious and intentional and finding ways to bring others into that experience.
Yeah, and I think the great, for me in particular, what's so valuable is that now we're in a time where since our thoughts are moving and the experience is moving, I feel like it's important to really emphasize and share with people that as we get more pieces of the puzzle, we can, further the conversation and we can look at different interpretations. So I think learning out loud is more agile and I think more flexible, but then maybe a more structured experience, because you don't then have to go back and write new canons. Like you can say, like, this is what's come to me through the conversation we're having, and which is more like, it's more instant. It's more instantaneous.
And it stops me from believing that whatever I know now is true. Because as I learn things and I say them out loud, I'm not waiting to be the expert in something. I'm saying, this is what I understand. And it allows me to get in real time feedback. I'm able to really engage with the community instead of feeling like I have to be an authority. I'm just someone who's learning and inviting other people to learn with me. And as I learn, I develop things that support others in their learning. And for me, it's the truest form of growth. Because to be within academia or to be behind a desk somewhere with my head down, just feeling like I'm getting the information and then one day I will be able to spurt it out, I'd rather it be an ongoing relationship between myself and the world, myself and people who are learning from and with me, and the people who are teaching me. And I mean, we know that life is cyclical and there is rhythm and there is growth and there is change, and I want to be a part of that without feeling like I have to be steeped inside of a archaic canon or a white male hetero truth that actually is way more dynamic than that. So I'd rather not just sit with my head down studying. I want to study out loud. I want to learn out loud. I want to be in community and conversation in a way that will push us to whatever the truth is now and what we understand now and what we can do now, not just what we've always understood to be true.
So I know that you have many literary projects underway, because you have the Great Unlearning, and then you also have your bookstore. And I'm obsessed with our earlier conversation about how you are learning and how learning for you is a luxury. And it's related to what you just said about how you're approaching your personal education. But I want to talk about it more. So first, tell me about the Great Unlearning.
Yeah.
And I'm like butchering that too.
No, it's the Great Unlearn. But
Unlearn. Sorry. It's the Great Unlearn.
No, it's okay. So the Great Unlearn came out of an experience that I had. I was attending Columbia University. I was just a semester in, and there were a lot of racist incidents going on, and it just didn't feel like it was worth the time and the money of being at that institution when it really wasn't giving me what I needed as a human, as a Black woman on campus. And as I said, I was really coming into the truth that learning in community and not having to climb to these standards of academia that didn't even really fit into my value system. And I decided to seek out ways to build my own curriculum, to build my own approach to academia, to learning, to discovery. And it really was rooted in, who do I want to be learning from? And how do I want my learning to look and feel? And when I left Columbia, I ended up really just exploring other ways to learn in the world. There's smaller institutions that are doing free community classes or even paid community classes with actual experts in the field, people who have lived and experienced these things, getting firsthand opportunities to learn. There are websites that offer syllabi that you can look into and maybe read through the things yourself and look at the questions that the professor is asking. I have friends who are professors who I could say, I'm really interested in this topic you're learning. Is there a way that I can learn from you directly as opposed to having to give these resources to a campus? I'd rather just pay you to work with me in a way that might be meaningful for the both of us. And so I set out with this intention to learn from different people and to build out a curriculum that felt true to me, to my approach to life, to my values, and to my community. And what that ended up looking like was that I started kind of just digging through the internet, through local libraries, through conversations with friends to see what are the spaces that we naturally learn from outside of the structure of an institution that has failed us in so many ways. And that's where the Great Unlearn came from. People were asking me, okay, Rachel, we see you left. We see that you're still approaching scholarship. How are you doing this? And so I wanted to learn out loud and share what I was doing as I was going along with it. And so the Great Unlearn ended up being a space where people could join me in this intention of being autodidactic with a bit of like meat and bones to it, of being really clear about who we want to be learning from. And the Great Unlearn is essentially a monthly syllabus that comes out. We bring in an expert, usually a person of color, usually a queer person, usually someone who works in the grassroots of the actual topic that they're teaching us from. And we work with them to create a syllabi of things to read, things to listen to, things to watch, and then we come together virtually to learn from them during what we call office hours. And oftentimes we'll get together and kind of have opportunity to read current, news articles that apply to the topic. And it's really just it's also donation based and self-paced. So you can join the live sessions, but they're also available after. So, parents who are up in the middle of the night because they're breastfeeding anyways, they can just hop on and maybe watch what our office hours looks like. And then later in the week, they can maybe dig into the readings that they want to really dig into. And what I love about the Great Unlearn is that it gives people empowerment in their own learning to say, the only way I learned about the history of America is in a classroom with a white male who was telling me all the things that boosted his ego about what white America meant to him. But when you're learning about, America before colonization even happened from an indigenous person who has a long lineage of being in relationship with the land, that is a very different knowledge collection than what we see in textbooks today.
Okay, so speaking of books, tell us about your bookstore and how that is related to your love of knowledge.
Yeah, my bookstore is called Elizabeth's. It lives in my hometown of Akron, Ohio. And I moved to Akron, Ohio in 2019 because my mother had gotten a terminal cancer diagnosis. And she luckily has been doing really well. They gave her 3 months and it's been 2 years now and she's still with us. And so it lends to, the unexpectedness of life and how things can really shift and change at any moment. So moving back, I was still in the writing groove. I was still in my New York City, energy space. And I was ready to get to a bookstore and start writing because in New York City, you can get to any bookstore and just be surrounded by interesting people, good energy, the books on the walls, and Akron just didn't have that. And they certainly didn't have any independent owned bookstores. And so I was like, I guess I got to do it because I need somewhere to write from that will keep me inspired. And just thinking of all the, whatever the percentage is of little Black girls who were like me, who loved going to bookstores, and how they weren't getting to speak to that part of themselves because there wasn't really anything available. So I created Elizabeth's and it's been living there in Akron. And we have no cis white men on our shelves. And the reason why I made that decision is because I really wanted to push our customers and our community to find new lens through which to view the world, that we know what it sounds like when a love story is told from the perspective of a white heterosexual man, but what is a love story sounding like in a YA book from a trans person who's experiencing love? From, one of my favorite books that is on our shelf as well is about a older Nigerian American woman who's in her 70s who falls and she has to go to a nursing home, and it's a whole love story about a man that she met in a nursing home. Like, that's the love story I want to read and hear about how her whole life has led to this moment, about the type of love she's developed from being an immigrant, from living in San Francisco. It was just an incredible opportunity to see life from that very specific lens that we just don't get to see, that isn't celebrated, that isn't honored with prizes, and isn't assigned in classrooms for us to learn from. And so the bookstore truly is an extension of that curiosity that I have and that I want for everyone, including those people who are in my community.
Another thing that I adore about you is that you allow that curiosity to really take you all across the world. In addition to that, you are so consistent in the way you live. So I know that you just moved to Jamaica, and well, you are spending time in Jamaica now, and you are spending time in Jamaica as a queer person in a truly homophobic space. I'm Jamaican, and I am fully aware of how homophobic our society is, how behind our society is. But you, in your being and in being there and in loving being there, you're completely challenging the system in your existence, in the way you choose to love there, in the way that you choose to be curious about our culture, and to take your, the principles that you have set down in learning there, because now you're exploring, learning from academics there. Can you just talk about that experience and, what it's meant to you thus far?
Yeah, Jamaica is full of so much love and so much joy and so much just culture and creativity. It's like the lifeblood. It's not just something that is the cherry on top of Jamaica. Like, it's part of what the island is. And my time there with my partner, who is a woman, has been, again, another learning experience to recognize who I am as a queer person in the world, who I am as an American outside of America, who I am as a Black person in relation to other parts of the diaspora that aren't African American, and what that means. And so Jamaica has expanded me. It's required me to expand my understanding of myself, of the Caribbean, of colonial history, of arts, of music, of so many aspects of life that I only had a concrete understanding of here in America. And while I've traveled around the world, I haven't really spent time in a place like I've spent in Jamaica now for almost a year. And, there's so much pride in being queer for me and for my partner and for the queer community that we have in Jamaica, because there is a bit of like deep joy in knowing ourselves and knowing that we can find the love that we want and the love that we need, even if the people around us don't understand it. And when community comes into it, where we're having, get-togethers with couples who normally aren't able to express their love when they're out having dinner together, but when they're in the home with us and we all love, respect, and support each other, to see that one couple finally like hold hands and kiss in a way that they aren't able to any other place. My partner Stacey Ann and I also live in Brooklyn, so we can kind of have the space to not be as lovey-dovey at the bank, when we're in Jamaica, because we know we have the space in other ways, but a lot of people don't. And I think that part of my time in Jamaica, the community I'm building, and what Stacey Ann and I have cultivated, that she's cultivated her lifelong, but now I get to be a part of it, is continuing to cultivate these safe spaces for queer people in Jamaica to just be free and be happy and be proud of themselves and each other and the love that exists between us.
I know, and so I wanted to talk about the Loveland Foundation now, because a part of your being is truly creating joy, creating peace of mind, calm, tranquility for your community and beyond. And you started the Loveland Foundation, which is a foundation that provides mental health therapy for women of color, BIPOC women who are, who have not had access to therapy. Mm-hmm. And it was a wish that turned into a reality. And I mean, I know some of the numbers that you have helped, and I know about the therapists that you have found, and how amazing and how available and how hard they've been working within your community. Can you tell us about how your wish came about and how you made Loveland into a reality?
Yeah, so the Loveland Foundation came out again of me having an experience and feeling like I want other people to get this chance if they want it. And it was during the time that I was at Columbia, and it was the first time that I had access to free therapy as a student at the university. And I was going to therapy every week, and I had a particular session that really felt like a breakthrough to me. And while I was leaving it, I was on my way to pick up the little girl I was nannying from her lessons, and I just couldn't shake the feeling that if only all of my friends and all the people in my community just had a moment to sit and talk through what they were feeling and going through, both the good and the bad, and getting clarity on it and feeling more grounded moving through the world, that it could fortify us all so much. And it really was just a call I put out on social media, and it was kind of like, I keep saying like a black market therapy fund, because there was no real structure around it. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't part of the world of philanthropy at the time. And so I set up a GoFundMe. I told people to contribute.
I want a t-shirt. I want a black market therapy.
Yeah, literally.
Can I have that? A t-shirt?
We have to get those made, because that's how I felt. That's how I felt.
I
was like,
it.
But it's so silly. This is the first time I'm thinking that this is how communities are built. It's the government and bureaucracy that makes us feel unofficial in helping each other. But like, helping each other is helping each other. Just because you haven't gotten the government stamp of approval doesn't mean that it's not meaningful work. And obviously there's centuries of communities who helped each other without the red tape of the government. So I was collecting this money, and I had assumed that I would just have Black women call me and tell me the name of their therapist, and I'd call and just like pay on their bills for them. That's what I assumed. This is truly what I thought was going to be the way that this was going to go. But I think I ended up raising like $10,000 overnight. People were contributing. I'm like, wait, this can't just sit in my account. I don't know how to do this. So very soon I had a wonderful woman named Charlene Himmler who was doing consulting work come and say, let me help you. And so she's now the CEO of the Loveland Foundation, and she has really built it out into an incredible organization that has allowed us to give over 75,000 hours of free therapy to Black girls around the country. And, these women and girls who come to us are really, they're finding so much joy in the opportunity to explore themselves, to find healing, to recognize and heal through their traumas that we all have in one way or another, particularly as being a Black girl or woman. And I get asked often, why aren't you doing this for Black men? And while Black men absolutely should have this opportunity too, I had to be strategic and intentional, as I am in so many ways, of saying, how can I help the most people with this opportunity? And I know, Black women are the bedrock of all of our communities, the church community, the neighborhood, the family unit. And so I knew that if I could help heal Black women, it would ripple out into the community as a whole. So this was my lane, and I'm really proud to be in it. And I'm excited for the ways that the foundation is continuing to not just support our participants who are coming in and getting therapy, but also to support the therapists who are doing such incredible work, pushing through what we're all going through in the day to day as Black people, but then they're showing up for our community. And so it's been really special. I always call the foundation like this delicious trifecta of being able to support Black women and girls, be able to support the Black therapists, and then for me to be able to be out doing what feels like really meaningful work in the world for me.
Awesome. I wanted to go back and ask you about how you're teaching your team to honor their boundaries, to honor their space, and the kind of organization that you've set up. Because I have the pleasure of talking to your team a lot, and when I say, we're taking these days for wellness. We're offline in this period for wellness. This is when we're working. That's real because I have received messages and regular updates on when things are happening. Can you just talk about building an organization that respects the lives and the space and the time of the employees, and just how building a space like that can impact other businesses in the future, because it is a space that other businesses can learn from. It is a structure.
Yeah, for sure. Loveland exists in two parts. There's the foundation side, and then there's the group side. And the group is where the businesses, the Great Unlearn, the bookstore are held. And then the foundation obviously is working with the therapy fund and other programs that we're building out. And so I have these two branches of really powerful teams that are moving through the world in ways that particularly on the foundation side can be incredibly exhausting, being Black women fighting so hard for other Black women. The foundation team is all Black women on that team. And then for the group, we're also a team of really powerful, queer, many of us are of color creatives, and we are the people we're doing the work for in both spaces. We are the exact people that we're out here building these worlds for. And so we had to be considerate of honoring the things that we demand be honored for our communities. And that includes rest, that includes community within ourselves, that includes prioritizing the voices of the Black women in our company, the Black people, and hearing, what are the ways we can continue to grow that benefit you, because we know that will benefit everyone else. And it's been an incredible experiment of sorts to try to run a foundation and a company that is pretty countercultural to what we understand business and philanthropy to look like. This loops directly back to my mother pushing me to see what's possible in so many areas of my life. And I've found deep pleasure in pushing what's possible in the world of philanthropy and in the world of corporations, to see what can be done to treat our employees with humanity. What does it mean to take 2 weeks off during the winter season and the summer season where we're not doing any business and people can just rest with knowing that when they come back, we will have a soft and intentional on-ramp back into the workflow. And it's been fun to challenge the world. It's been hard to get all of us out of the framework that we understand. We have people who Loveland is their first job and they're kind of trying to figure out what this means. We have people who have worked in corporate America for a long time and they're coming in and being like, wait, what does this mean and how are we able to move through it? And me, I didn't study business and I didn't come from the philanthropy world, so I'm bringing in my own lens and my own curiosity about how this could look and feel. And I think that the ground of it is that I find it incredibly pleasurable to continue to see what's possible.
When I know you love your pleasure.
I do.
I know you love your pleasure, and that's what I want to talk about now. So you are my Rich Auntie Supreme. And I have to come up with other adjectives because I adore you. I love you. But I'm living
I'm like, yes, find more words, please.
But I am living for the soft life, and I'm living for your exploration of the soft life. And so I know you're someone who you find so many really rich niches to delve into, like pottery. I know that you love pottery. You love travel.
Yes.
You love art. Can you just tell us what it is about your passion for living well that drives you?
I think it fits into the same conversation of like, what's possible for a life well lived? Like, what would it mean? I've really been thinking just recently. The mantra that has come to me is, well, not come to me out of thin air. I believe I was reading through a book and I actually saw it pop up in a few different books that spoke about mindfulness, is to say to ourselves, just for today, what if I ... And just yesterday, for me, I had a few gifts that I needed to give to some wonderful people who I was excited to gift. And I am like a gift, like I buy like really nice wrapping paper and like the string and like the accessories.
July 30th.
July 30th noted. And I just think it is so much fun. I think the wrapping of the gift is almost more fun than the gift giving. So I really indulge in the experience. And yesterday I kind of had a busy day, and I was like, Rachel, what if just for today you let everything take as much time as it takes? And when you're done, but you will have gotten everything done. And that I needed like to get my hair braided, I need to get my nails done, I need to get these gifts wrapped into the UPS. I needed, there were all these things that I had to get done. And I was feeling pretty anxious about it because time is my anxiety. I get really anxious about time. And so then I really just like took a breath and I said, what if for today you let things take as long as they take, and it will be what it is. And so I called my partner and I said, I have decided that today will take as long as it takes. So I will see you when I see you this evening, and I'll keep you posted throughout the day. And so I sat down to my desk. I'm in my little gift wrapping closet and pulling out all the strings and everything. And the time that it took to wrap the gifts and to write there were 3 gifts, the time it took to put it all together, wrap it, and write the cards to put in it took about 2.5 hours. It was like, I would have never naturally been like, okay, 2 hours to wrap the gift, but I just let it take the time that it took, and it was so good. I mean, I wrote the way that I wanted to write in those notes. I put the tape where I wanted it to go. I was able to like fold the creases the way that I wanted to, and it just felt truly luxurious to feel creative in the wrapping of the gift, to lay out my feelings in these thank you notes that I was writing. And it's like those types of small moments, what I call the living, these moments of the living where it's not the most exciting thing, it's not the most Instagrammable thing, it's not even something that might sound exciting when you actually say it out loud. But I was truly finding so much joy in that moment. It's like sipping my water, really taking the time to not rush myself through the writing. And I think that is such a perfect example of my commitment to finding joy in the living, that I don't want to have to wait for my next trip or to wait for something exciting enough to announce to the world, that I can find deep joy in wrapping up something before taking it to UPS, or folding my laundry has been so enjoyable to me lately. Like the towels, like it's the same folding over and over.
I think it's therapeutic.
It's like the rhythm of it.
It's therapeutic.
And I feel deeply grateful to have this space in my mind to find joy in little things like that. And I want to continue to do that over and over in my life, in small ways and in big ways.
Well, I'm 100% sure that when your receivees, your giftees receive these packages, I know that it's going to touch their heart, and I know that they're going to receive your energy.
Yeah, I hope they feel
it.
it. Yeah, that's part of it.
Will.
That's absolutely part of it. That's in cooking. That's in when you're out, even preparing your house for someone to come over. Whatever it is that we're doing, people feel that energy, and we get sucked out of that flow of intention in life because we have so much to do, or because we're just so distracted. And I'm really committed to bringing myself back to that flow when I kind of get flaily out in the world. Or when I say out in the world, I usually mean in my mind in one way or another.
I'm 100% sure that even those packages being in contact with other packages is going to change the energy of the other male recipients. I'm pretty sure about this. So. Well, thank you for coming over for Chinese.
It was so delicious.
Yes, yes.
I feel like it was more delicious because we were together. So
yes.
let's have Chinese food more often.
And we're done.
Yay! Oh my God, so much fun.
Thank you.